Have you ever thought about how desperation can completely shatter a person? How it can twist a devoted son into something dark, almost inhuman? My name is Weston Hale, and these words come from my prison cell in Colorado State Penitentiary, where I'm serving 15 years for attempting to kill someone who gave me life my own mother. I feel compelled to tell this story because it follows me like a shadow every single day. Somewhere out there, someone else may be standing at the same crossroads I once did, and maybe hearing my confession will keep them from stepping into the abyss I chose. 2 years ago, I looked like any ordinary guy in Denver. I worked as a project manager in home renovations, had a decent place to live, and drove a sturdy truck. On the surface, everything seemed normal, but the truth was I was drowning in silence, sinking deeper every day. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more real stories and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. It started innocently enough the way these things always do. A few bets on football games with buddies from work. $20 here, 50 there. Nothing serious. Just guys having fun, you know. But winning that first big bet, $200 on a Broncos game, that was like tasting something addictive. The rush, the excitement, the feeling that I was smarter than everyone else. Within 6 months, I wasn't just betting on football anymore. Basketball, baseball, even hockey games I knew nothing about. The amounts got bigger. The losses started piling up. What began as $5,000 in debt became 10, then 20, then 50. By the time I realized I was in real trouble, I owed $120,000 to people who don't exactly accept payment plans. These weren't your friendly neighborhood bookies. Tony Moretti and his crew operated out of a warehouse in North Denver, and they had a reputation for collecting debts in ways that left permanent reminders. The phone calls started getting more frequent, more threatening. Tony's voice was always calm, almost friendly, but his words cut like ice. "Weston, buddy, you know I like you. But business is business. You've got 2 weeks, or we're going to have to get creative about collecting what you owe." I tried everything, worked overtime, sold my truck, maxed out every credit card I could get my hands on. But it wasn't even close to enough. The interest kept piling up faster than I could pay it down. I was trapped in a nightmare of my own making, and I couldn't see any way out. That's when my sister Blair came back into the picture. She'd been going through her own hell, a messy divorce that left her with nothing. Her ex-husband had discovered her affair with his business partner, and Colorado's divorce laws weren't kind to cheating spouses. She lost the house, the cars, even her retirement savings. At 36 years old, she was moving back into our childhood bedroom at Mom's house on Maple Street. We were both sitting in my apartment one evening in late June, sharing a bottle of cheap whiskey and our mutual misery. Blair had always been the smart one in the family, the one who went to college, became a pharmacist, married well. Seeing her broken and desperate felt like looking in a mirror. "We're both screwed, aren't we?" she said, staring into her glass. "Pretty much," I replied. "Unless you know where to get 120 grand in the next 2 weeks. That's when she got quiet. That's when I saw something change in her eyes, something cold and calculating that I'd never seen before. She looked at me for a long moment, then around my crappy apartment, then back at me. "Actually," she said slowly, "I might know exactly where to get that money, and a lot more. I should have walked away right then. Should have told her whatever she was thinking was a bad idea. Should have recognized the danger in her voice. But desperation makes you stupid, makes you willing to listen to ideas you'd normally run from." That's when Blair came to me with an idea that would change everything. That conversation happened 4 months before everything fell apart. Blair called me on a sweltering July evening, her voice urgent. "Meet me at the King Soopers parking lot on Colfax. Come alone." I found her in her beat-up Honda Civic engine, running air conditioning, fighting the Colorado heat. She drove to the far corner, away from streetlights and cameras. "I've been thinking about your Tony problem," she said, her voice eerily calm. "About those 2 weeks he gave you." "Oh, Blair, unless you've got 120 grand lying around." "I don't, but I have something better. A real solution." She pulled out her phone, showing me her bank account. $18,000. It's everything I have left from selling my jewelry and furniture. That's not even close to enough. It's enough to buy us time. She leaned forward. "You pay Tony 20 grand as a good faith payment. Tell him your liquidating assets need 4 more months to get the rest. Men like Tony, they'd rather get paid eventually than kill someone who can't pay them at all." It made sense, but I was missing something. Where do I get the other 100 grand in 4 months? My situation isn't going to magically improve. That's when her expression changed. Something cold and calculating flickered in her eyes. Actually, it might, if we're smart about it. What do you mean? She pulled out papers, spreading them across the dashboard like a twisted business presentation. Mom's 78 Weston, high blood pressure, diabetes, arthritis. At her age, a gradual decline wouldn't surprise anyone. The implication hit me like a punch. You're talking about killing our mother. I'm talking about accelerating a natural process, she said clinically. Small doses of certain compounds through the ventilation system. It would look like organ failure, maybe dementia. I felt sick. Are you insane? This is Mom we're talking about. But Blair was prepared. She pointed to the documents. Look at the numbers, Weston. Despite myself, my eyes found the papers. Mom's life insurance, $300,000. Savings, $150,000. The house on Maple Street, $400,000. $800,000, Blair said quietly. Split between us, that's $400 each. More than enough to pay off Tony completely and start fresh. I can't believe you've researched this. I've done more than research. She showed me chemical formulas. My pharmacy background isn't just for filling prescriptions. I can make this work, Weston. 3 months, maybe 4. Slow enough to seem natural. I pushed the papers away. No, absolutely not. There is no other way. Her calm facade cracked. I'm giving you my last $18,000 to buy us time, but that's it. That's all I have. After that, we either do this together or Tony kills you and I end up living in Mom's basement forever. The weight of it hit me. She was offering her last penny to save my life, but only as part of a larger, unthinkable plan. How would you even do it? I heard myself asking. Mom's been complaining about that upstairs bathroom for months. We convince her to renovate it, and during construction we install a delivery system connected to her bedroom ventilation. By the time Tony's 4-month deadline comes up, we'll have the inheritance money to pay him off completely. I thought about Tony's threats, my empty bank account, Blair sacrificing her last savings for me. I thought about Mom alone in that house, trusting us completely. If we do this, I whispered, there's no going back. There's already no going back, Blair replied. The question is whether we solve this problem permanently or just delay it. I closed my eyes and felt something fundamental break inside me. When I opened them, I was someone different, someone capable of unthinkable things. That night, I agreed to let my sister loan me her last $18,000 to buy time from a killer so we could murder the woman who raised us. The bathroom renovation began 1 week later. I'd already paid Tony $20,000, buying us 4 months. Now came the harder part, convincing Mom to renovate. I drove to Maple Street on a Saturday morning, my stomach churning. Mom was in her garden, tending tomatoes in her wide-brimmed hat, looking small and trusting. Weston, honey, she beamed. Perfect timing, I just made lemonade. Actually, Mom, I wanted to talk about that upstairs bathroom. Those pipes are really old, probably from the 70s. They do make awful noises at night, she agreed. But they work fine. That's what worries me. I put on my practiced, concerned expression. Old pipes can burst without warning. Water damage could destroy the whole second floor. Her face changed as she processed this. Mom had always feared unexpected expenses. How much would it cost? I can handle most of the work myself. Just need a plumber for technical stuff. Maybe $3,000 total and I'll cover it. Early Christmas present. Her eyes filled with tears. Oh, Weston, you're such a good son. I don't know what I'd do without you and Blair. Those words hit like a physical blow. I had to look away. So we can start Monday. Of course, honey. I trust you completely. The renovation began that Monday. I hired 2 legitimate contractors for visible work. Tiles, fixtures, vanity. They had no idea about the real project behind the walls. While they worked, Blair and I installed our secret system. She'd ordered components online, thin tubing chemical reservoirs, digital timers, a tiny ventilation fan. The beauty is, it's hidden within existing HVACs, Blair explained as we worked in the basement. Even if someone looked, they'd see normal ductwork. I held the flashlight while she connected tubing to Ruth's bedroom air vent. What exactly are we pumping in? Compounds that gradually weaken respiratory and cardiovascular systems. Nothing showing up in standard autopsy, especially given her age and conditions. Her clinical discussion made my skin crawl, but I kept working, too far in to stop. The hardest part was acting normal. Mom brought sandwiches and iced tea, fussing over us like we were doing her the biggest favor. She insisted on paying for lunch despite protests. You boys work so hard to help me, she'd say. Least I can do. Every kindness was a knife in my chest. Friday evening we finished installation. Contractors had left. The bathroom looked beautiful, everything Mom wanted. Hidden behind walls was a system designed to kill her slowly. "Ready for first test?" Blair asked, holding a small remote. I stared at the device. Once we pressed that button, no more pretending this was theoretical. We'd officially become our mother's murderers. "Weston." Blair's voice was impatient. "We need to know it works." I nodded, not trusting my voice. She pressed the button. Somewhere in walls, I heard barely audible humming as the system activated. Display showed green lights across all functions. "Perfect," Blair said with satisfaction. "Timer's set for midnight releases when she's in deepest sleep. Small doses, completely undetectable." That night, I lay in my apartment staring at the ceiling until dawn. Across town, my mother slept peacefully, while poison slowly filled her lungs. She was probably dreaming about how proud she was of her children, how lucky she felt to have such caring kids. I thought about calling her, confessing everything, begging forgiveness. But Tony's deadline loomed, and Blair's $18,000 was already spent on his down payment. We needed that inheritance money, and Mom was the only thing standing between us and it. The next morning, Mom called to thank me again for the beautiful bathroom. "It's like having a spa in my own home," she said, her voice bright with joy. "You and Blair are such blessings." The first signs appeared within a week. Mom called Tuesday afternoon, her voice hoarse. "Weston, honey, I've been feeling so tired lately. Even after a full night's sleep, I wake up exhausted." My chest tightened. The system was working. "Maybe you should take it easy, Mom. And these headaches just won't go away." I gripped the phone, fighting the urge to tell her to leave the house immediately. Instead, I suggested Tylenol. Blair documented everything methodically. She'd created a notebook with dates, times, symptoms. Every conversation with Mom got recorded in neat handwriting. August 15th, fatigue, mild headache. August 18th, sleep difficulties. August 22nd, voice weaker. "And this is sick," I told her one evening. "We're treating her like a lab experiment." "We're being thorough," Blair replied coldly. "No mistakes, no suspicion." Every phone call felt like torture. Mom would tell me how grateful she was, how lucky to have her children close. Her voice grew weaker each week. "I'm so blessed to have you two," she'd say, patting my cheek with trembling hands. I started remembering her caring for me during childhood illnesses, her cool hand checking my fever, making homemade soup when I was too weak to eat. Now I was the one making her weak. The breaking point came early September. I was helping Mom change a light bulb when she swayed and grabbed the counter. "I feel dizzy," she whispered, then collapsed. I caught her body frighteningly light. For a terrifying moment, I thought we'd killed her. Her breathing was shallow, skin pale. Can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open. "Weston, what happened?" "You fainted. I'm calling 911. No, I'm fine. Just got up too fast." But she wasn't fine. Sunken cheeks closed, hanging loose on her shrinking frame. We were murdering her by degrees. That night, I called Blair, panicked. "We have to stop this. She almost died today." "She's supposed to get worse, Weston. That's the point." "This isn't getting worse. This is torture. She's dying peacefully at home, surrounded by family. That's more than most people get. I can't do this anymore." "Yes, you can. Tony Moretti won't wait for your conscience. You've got 2 months left." She was right, and I hated her for it. 2 weeks later, worried about Mom's frailty, I installed a tracking app on her phone. "It's for safety, Mom," I explained. "If you fall or need help, I can find you immediately." "You're such a thoughtful son," she said, squeezing my hand. The app became another surveillance tool. I could see when she left the house, how long errands took, whether she moved around normally. Most days, the little dot representing my mother barely moved. By October, the change was undeniable. Mom had lost 20 pounds, her voice permanently hoarse, needing help with simple tasks. Neighbors commented on her appearance. Her doctor scheduled frequent checkups. "Tests don't show anything definitive," she told me after one appointment. "Dr. Hayes thinks it might be early stage something, but we need more invasive procedures to know for sure." I wanted to scream, wanted to confess, wanted to drive her to the hospital and demand they flush the poison from her system. But Tony's deadline loomed. 1 month left. Blair had calculated we needed just 2 more weeks for the inheritance process to begin after Mom's death. "Look at the timeline." She showed me her charts. "Mom's condition is progressing perfectly. Natural decline, no suspicion. We're almost there, Weston. Almost there. Almost to the point where our mother would be dead and we'd be rich." But Blair reminded me we were too close to stop. October 15th started with the phone ringing at 6:30. Tony Moretti's number flashed on my screen, and my blood turned to ice. "Weston, buddy." His voice was calm, almost friendly, which made it more terrifying. "Hope I didn't wake you." "Tony, 48 hours, Weston. That's what you've got left. 48 hours to come up with my 100 grand, or we're gonna have a very different kind of conversation." The line went dead. I sat on my bed, hands shaking. 2 days. After 4 months of watching Mom slowly die, we were down to 2 days. I called Blair immediately. "We need to speed things up," I whispered. "We can't speed this up, Weston. It has to look natural." "Natural isn't good enough. Tony wants his money in 2 days. Then we'll figure something else out. Maybe a loan against Mom's house." That's when my phone rang again. Mom's number. "Weston, honey." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry to call so early, but I need your help." "What's wrong, Mom?" "There's water dripping from the dining room ceiling. Started during the night. I think it's coming from the upstairs bathroom." My heart stopped. The bathroom, our bathroom, the one with the system. Water? How much water? Not a flood, but steady. Every few seconds another drop falls onto my dining table. I'm worried about the ceiling collapsing. I was already getting dressed, mind racing. Something had gone wrong with our installation. Maybe the reservoirs leaked. Maybe someone would discover our system. "I'll be right over, Mom." "Oh, you don't need to come. I just need a good plumber, someone reliable." A plumber, a stranger investigating the bathroom, potentially discovering what we'd hidden in the walls. Mom, let me handle this. I know contractors." "No, honey, you've done enough already. I can call someone myself." "Absolutely not." I tried to keep panic from my voice. "I'll find someone good. Give me an hour." After hanging up, I sat in my truck Googling plumbers. I needed someone competent enough to fix the leak quickly, but not experienced enough to ask questions about unusual piping. I scrolled through listings. Martinez Plumbing, too big. Thompson & Sons might be too thorough. Then I found him. Miguel Santos Plumbing Services. One-man operation, decent reviews, located in Aurora, far from Mom's neighborhood. Reviews mentioned he was professional, but quick-focused on efficiency. Perfect. It's Santos Plumbing. This is Miguel. "Hi, I need someone to check a leak in my mother's ceiling, coming from the upstairs bathroom. I can be there this morning. Address." I gave him Mom's address. Should take about an hour to diagnose, maybe 2 to fix depending on the problem. 75 an hour. "That's fine. How soon?" "I can be there by 10 o'clock. "Perfect. My mother will be home. Ruth Hale." "Got it. See you at 10. I hung up, feeling relieved. Miguel sounded professional, but straightforward. He'd fix the leak, maybe replace some pipes and leave. No reason to investigate beyond the immediate problem. No reason to look closely at our modified ventilation system. I called Mom back. "I found someone, Mom. Miguel Santos. He'll be there at 10. "Oh, thank you, honey. You're such a good son." Those words hit like a knife. Good son. If only she knew what her good son had been doing to her for 3 months. I spent the next hour pacing my apartment, checking my phone every few minutes. Maybe this would be simple. Maybe Miguel would fix the leak without discovering anything suspicious. Maybe we could still pull this off. Miguel said he'd be there in an hour. Biggest mistake of my life. The call came at exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd been pacing my apartment for 4 hours, checking my phone every few minutes, when Miguel's number finally appeared on my screen. "Mr. Hale, this is Miguel Santos." "It's Miguel, hi. Did you find the leak? There was a pause that made my stomach drop. "I found the leak, yes, but I also found something else. Something that doesn't belong in your mother's house." My mouth went dry. "What do you mean?" "There's equipment hidden behind the bathroom walls. Tubing containers with chemicals, digital timers. It's connected to the ventilation system leading to your mother's bedroom." I gripped the phone tighter, my mind racing for an explanation. "Oh, that. I think that might be some kind of air purification system. The previous contractor mentioned installing something for Mom's allergies." "Mr. Hale." Miguel's voice was firm, professional. "I've been a plumber for 15 years. I know every kind of air filtration system made. This isn't air purification. This is a delivery system designed to disperse substances into a specific room." The walls of my apartment felt like they were closing in. "I'm not sure what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm telling you directly. Someone installed a system to poison your mother." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Poison. He'd said it out loud. "That's impossible," I said, trying to sound shocked. "Who would do something like that?" Someone with access to the house during renovation. Someone who knew exactly which room to target. Someone with knowledge of chemistry and construction. Every word was an accusation. Miguel knew. Somehow this stranger had walked into our house and unraveled months of careful planning in a single morning. Look, Miguel, I said, switching tactics. Maybe we should discuss this in person. I can drive over there right now, and I'd be happy to pay you extra for your discretion while we figure out what's going on. Are you trying to bribe me, Mr. Hale? No, because that would suggest you know more about this system than you're letting on. I was trapped. Every word I said was digging the hole deeper. Miguel, please. My mother is elderly. She has health problems. If word gets out about some kind of conspiracy theory, it could really upset her. Conspiracy theory. His voice rose. Mr. Hale, I'm looking at physical evidence. Chemicals that could kill someone if administered over time. Your mother's been getting sicker, hasn't she? How could he know that? How could a stranger see what we'd been doing for months? I have to tell her, Miguel said firmly. I can't walk away from this. Wait, please. But the line was already dead. I immediately called back, but it went straight to voicemail. I was in my truck and driving toward Maple Street before I'd even fully processed what was happening. Maybe I could get there first. Maybe I could convince Miguel he was wrong, or convince Mom that he was crazy. But I was too late. When I pulled into Mom's driveway 20 minutes later, I could see them through the kitchen window. Miguel was showing Mom something on his phone, probably photos of our system. Mom was shaking her head, her hands pressed to her mouth. I sat in my truck unable to move. Through the window I watched Miguel point toward the ceiling, then toward Mom's bedroom. I watched my mother's face change as the truth sank in. She looked toward the window where I was sitting, and our eyes met across the distance. In that moment, I saw her realize everything. The bathroom renovation. The months of mysterious illness. Her son who'd been so helpful, so caring, so concerned about her health. I watched her mouth the word Weston, like a question she already knew the answer to. Miguel was still talking, explaining what he'd found, but Mom wasn't listening anymore. She was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not even hurt. Just complete devastating understanding. When Miguel said, "Your son knows about this," my world ended. I called Blair from a gas station 3 miles away from Mom's house, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I couldn't face them. Couldn't look at Mom's eyes knowing she'd discovered the truth. So I ran like the coward I was. "We're finished," I said the moment she answered. "The plumber found everything. Mom knows." "Slow down, Weston. What exactly happened?" Miguel Santos found our system. He was showing Mom photos when I drove up. I saw them through the kitchen window, but I couldn't. I couldn't go in there, Blair. I just sat in my truck like a coward and watched Mom realize her son was poisoning her. "Where are you now?" "At Michelle's station on Alameda. I ran okay. I saw the look on her face and I ran." There was a pause, but when Blair spoke, her voice was unnaturally calm. "Good. Running was smart. Where are they now?" "Still at the house, I think. Miguel was explaining everything when I left." "Perfect. That gives us time." "Time for what? It's over, Blair. We need to leave the state. We're not going anywhere." Her tone was ice cold. "I've been prepared for this possibility since we started." "What do you mean?" "Meet me at the Walmart parking lot on Federal Boulevard. 20 minutes? "Blair, what are you talking about?" "By Dombestaus and Bundy's." 20 minutes, Weston. Don't be late." She hung up. I drove to Walmart in a daze, hating myself for being too weak to face what I'd done. I found her in her Honda engine running. She motioned for me to get in. "Look at this," she said, opening a small medical case. Inside was a syringe filled with clear liquid along with several vials. "What is that?" "Concentrated version of what we've been using on Mom, enough to cause cardiac arrest within minutes." I stared in horror. "You want to kill her?" "I want to solve our problem. Mom and Miguel are the only witnesses. Without them, there's no evidence." "Blair, that's our mother. That's a threat to our survival." Her voice was emotionless. "She knows we tried to kill her. You think she'll keep quiet? You think Miguel will—" "We could explain." "Explain what?" "That we slowly poisoned our mother because you owe money to criminals." She was right, but murdering Mom with my own hands made me sick. "I can't do this." "Yes, you can. Because if you don't, I'm telling police this was your idea. That you threatened me into helping. That I was scared for my life." I stared at my sister, seeing her clearly for the first time. The cold calculation, the complete absence of guilt. She wasn't just willing to kill our mother, she'd been planning for it. "You're insane." "I'm practical. Tony Moretti wants his money tomorrow, Weston. Tomorrow. If we don't eliminate these witnesses tonight, you'll be dead by Wednesday and I'll be in prison forever." She leaned closer, whispering, "But if we handle this correctly, we can still make it look natural. Mom dies from gradual poisoning, heart failure from chemical exposure. Miguel becomes a tragic victim who discovered the truth too late. We inherit the money, pay Tony, move on." I closed my eyes, feeling my last shred of humanity disappear. She was right about Tony, right about the timeline, right about everything. The coward in me that had run from Mom's house was the same coward that would help kill her to save myself. How do we find them? I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers, opening the family tracking app I'd installed months ago. The little blue dot representing Mom's location appeared immediately on the downtown Denver map. President Hotel. She was at the President Hotel on 17th Street. "I found them," I told Blair, showing her the screen. "Perfect. How long to get there?" 20 minutes in traffic. As we drove through the city, I couldn't stop staring at that blue dot on my phone. 6 weeks ago, I'd installed this app with such good intentions. I'd sat in Mom's kitchen, helping her set it up on her phone. "It's for your safety, Mom," I'd explained. "If you fall or need help, I can find you immediately." She'd squeezed my hand, eyes bright with gratitude. "You're such a thoughtful son, Weston, always looking out for me." Now that same app was guiding me to her, like a hunting beacon. The tool I'd created to protect her had become the instrument of her destruction. "There," Blair said as we pulled into the hotel parking lot. "Silver Honda Civic by the entrance. That's Miguel's car." I spotted them through the lobby's glass windows. Mom was sitting in an armchair, looking smaller and frailer than I'd ever seen her. Even from this distance, I could see how the months of poisoning had ravaged her body. She'd lost so much weight that her clothes hung loose, and she moved with the careful, deliberate motions of someone whose strength had been stolen away. Miguel sat beside her, occasionally placing a protective hand on her shoulder. They both looked terrified. "Look at her," I whispered. "Look what we did to her." Blair's voice was cold. "She looks like a dying old woman, which is exactly what we needed her to look like. But I couldn't see her that clinically anymore. All I could see was my mother, the woman who'd rocked me to sleep when I had nightmares as a child, who'd sat beside my bed for 3 days straight when I had pneumonia at age 10, reading me comic books and bringing me soup, who taught me to ride a bike, helped me with homework, celebrated every small victory in my life like it was the greatest achievement in the world. I remembered the way she'd hug me when I was scared, her arms strong and warm around my shoulders. "Everything will be okay, Weston," she'd whisper. "Mama's here. Mama will always protect you." Now I was the thing she needed protection from. "Ed, she used to sing to me," I said, my voice breaking. "When I couldn't sleep, she'd sing this lullaby her mother taught her. Something about angels watching over children." Weston, focus. I was her baby, her little boy. She would have done anything for me, given me anything I asked for. All I had to do was tell her about the debt, ask for help. She would have found a way. With what money she's living on, Social Security. She would have tried. She would have sold the house borrowed against her life insurance, anything. Because that's what mothers do for their children. I watched Mom through the window, saw her wipe tears from her cheeks with shaking hands. Miguel was talking to her, probably explaining what they needed to do next, how they could get help. Instead, I chose to murder her, slowly, while she thanked me for being such a good son. "You chose to survive," Blair said flatly, "and we're not finished yet." She was right. Sitting in this parking lot watching my broken mother cry, I realized I'd become something unrecognizable. Not just a killer, but something worse. A predator who'd turned on the person who loved him most. The woman who'd protected me my entire childhood was now hiding from me in a hotel lobby, afraid for her life because of what I'd done to her. But Blair was already moving toward the alley. The alley behind the President Hotel was narrow and dark lit only by a single flickering streetlight. Perfect for what Blair had planned. We'd waited until Mom and Miguel left through the back exit, probably hoping to avoid being seen. They moved slowly, Mom leaning heavily on Miguel's arm, both of them looking over their shoulders like hunted animals, which I realized with sick clarity was exactly what they were. "Now," Blair whispered. We stepped out of the shadows, blocking their path to the street. Miguel immediately moved in front of Mom, spreading his arms protectively. "Mr. Hale," he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "Step away from your mother." "I'm afraid we can't do that," Blair replied, pulling the syringe from her jacket pocket. Mom's gasp echoed off the brick walls. Blair, what is that? Insurance, Mom. Insurance that you won't ruin everything we've worked for. Miguel's eyes darted between us and the mouth of the alley. Mrs. Hale, stay behind me. Weston. Mom's voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through me like a blade. Weston, look at me. I forced myself to meet her eyes. Even in the dim light, I could see the devastation there. Not just fear, but heartbreak so profound it made my chest ache. How could you do this to me? She asked. I'm your mother. I gave you life. I loved you more than my own breath. I would have given you anything, Weston, anything you asked for. All you had to do was tell me you were in trouble. Blair stepped closer, syringe raised. Enough talking. Miguel, move away from her. No. Miguel stood his ground. I won't let you hurt this woman. Then you'll die with her. Weston, Mom said, ignoring Blair completely. Look at what you've become. Look at what this greed has turned you into. I remembered being 7 years old, caught stealing candy from the corner store. Mom had sat me down in our kitchen, her voice gentle but firm. Weston, baby, we don't take things that don't belong to us. We don't hurt people to get what we want. That's not who we are. That's not who I raised you to be. Oh, hold Miguel, Blair ordered me. I need a clear shot. I stood frozen paralyzed between my sister's command and my mother's eyes. Weston, Mom whispered, you're still my little boy. You're still the child I sang to sleep, the boy I bandaged when he fell off his bike. That person is still in there somewhere. He's gone, Mom, I said, my voice breaking. That person died months ago. No, she shook her head, tears streaming down her face. He's right there. I can see him. My sweet boy who used to bring me dandelions and call them flowers. Blair raised the syringe toward Mom's neck. Weston grabbed Miguel now, but instead of reaching for Miguel, I found myself stepping toward Blair. Weston, what are you doing? I can't, I whispered. I can't watch you kill her. You don't have a choice. Yes, I do. I grabbed Blair's wrist, forcing the syringe away from Mom. I choose her. I choose my mother. Blair struggled against my grip, her face twisted with rage. You're going to get us both killed. Maybe that's what we deserve. In that moment, as I held my sister back and saw hope flicker in my mother's eyes, I heard something that made my heart soar. That's when I heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Police sirens. The most beautiful sound in the world was police sirens growing louder as 3 squad cars converged on the alley. Miguel had called them from the hotel lobby while we'd been watching from the parking lot. Smart man, he'd probably suspected we might follow them. At hands where we can see them, an officer shouted, weapon drawn. I immediately raised my hands, the relief flooding through me so intense I nearly collapsed. It was over. Finally, mercifully over. Blair still clutched the syringe, her face twisted with fury. You ruined everything, she hissed at me as officers surrounded us. I saved us, I replied. I saved what was left of our souls. Drop the weapon, the lead officer commanded. Blair looked at the syringe in her hand, then at Mom, then back at the officers. For a terrifying moment, I thought she might try to use it anyway. But finally, she let it fall to the ground. Weston Hale and Blair Hale, you're under arrest for attempted murder. As they cuffed me, I looked at Mom. Miguel had his arm around her shoulders, and she was crying. Not from fear anymore, but from something deeper. Relief mixed with heartbreak. I'm sorry, Mom, I called out as they led me to the squad car. I'm so sorry. She didn't respond, but I saw her nod slightly. It wasn't forgiveness, but maybe it was acknowledgement that some part of her son still existed. At the police station, I told them everything. Every detail of the 3-month poisoning, the bathroom renovation, the chemical delivery system, Blair's notebooks documenting Mom's decline, Tony Moretti and the gambling debts, all of it. Blair in the next interrogation room said nothing except, I want a lawyer. The evidence was overwhelming. Police found our system exactly where Miguel had described it. They found Blair's detailed logs of Mom's symptoms. They found the chemical compounds, the timers, the modified ventilation. Everything we'd thought was so clever became proof of our guilt. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I pled guilty to attempted murder and testified against Blair, explaining how she'd masterminded the poisoning plan. My cooperation with prosecutors earned me some leniency. Blair maintained her innocence throughout, claiming I'd forced her to participate, that she'd been afraid of me. The jury didn't believe her. The evidence was too clear, her demeanor too cold. When the verdicts came down, Blair received 20 years in state prison. I got 15 with possibility of parole after 10. The worst moment wasn't hearing my sentence. It was seeing Mom in the courtroom gallery looking frail and aged beyond her years. She'd recovered physically from the poisoning, but the emotional damage was written on her face. During my victim impact statement, she stood slowly and looked directly at me. "Weston was my baby," she said, her voice barely audible. "I would have given him anything, my house, my savings, my life. All he had to do was ask." She paused, wiping tears from her cheeks. "Instead, he chose to kill me slowly while I thanked him for being such a good son. I don't know if I'll ever understand how love can become so twisted." She sat down without looking at me again. As they led me away in shackles, I realized something that made my stomach turn. Prison wasn't my punishment. 24 hours a day for the next 10 to 15 years, I'd have to live with the knowledge of what I'd done to the person who loved me most. The real punishment was yet to come. I'm writing this from my cell in Sterling Correctional Facility, 2 years into my 15-year sentence. The concrete walls, steel bars, constant noise of prison life. None of that is my real punishment. My real punishment is waking up every morning, remembering what I did to my mother. 2 years in here have changed me completely. The desperate, gambling-addicted man who agreed to poison his mother no longer exists. In his place is someone who understands the true weight of betrayal, someone who has learned that some actions can never be undone. Mom visits me once a month. She's 70 now, hair completely gray, moving slower, but with a dignity prison can't touch. She's forgiven me. She told me so during her 3rd visit. But I see the pain in her eyes every time she looks at me through the glass partition. "I still love you, Weston," she said last month. "You're still my son, but I don't know if I'll ever understand how you could have done what you did." "Neither do I, Mom. Neither do I. Blair is in a women's facility 200 miles from here. We're not allowed contact, but I hear about her through the prison grapevine. She's adapted well to incarceration, never expressed remorse, never asked about Mom's health. Even now, she believes she did nothing wrong. That's the difference between us. I wake up drowning in guilt while she sleeps peacefully, convinced she was justified in trying to kill our mother for money. I want to tell you something about desperation. It's a poison more dangerous than anything Blair mixed in those containers. Desperation makes you believe your problems are more important than other people's lives. It convinces you that you have no choice when you actually have dozens. You're just too scared or proud to make the right ones. I could have told Mom about the gambling debt, could have declared bankruptcy, could have left Denver, changed my name, started over, could have gone to Gamblers Anonymous, gotten help, found a way to pay Tony back over time. Instead, I chose the path that seemed easiest, but was actually the most destructive possible. I chose to betray the person who loved me most, to repay a lifetime of unconditional love with calculated murder. The gambling started small like it always does. A few bets with friends, nothing serious. But addiction doesn't stay small. It grows, demands more, takes everything you're willing to give, and then demands more. By the time I realized I was in trouble, I was already drowning. If you're listening to this and recognize yourself in my story, if you're placing bets you can't afford, borrowing money to chase losses, lying to people you love, please get help now, before desperation makes you into someone you won't recognize. There is no amount of money worth destroying your family. There is no debt worth betraying the people who love you. There is no situation so desperate that murder becomes reasonable. Mom still sends me birthday cards. She still signs them, "Love, Mom," even though I tried to kill her. That's what real love looks like, not the twisted, selfish thing I called love when I was justifying poisoning her. I have 13 more years in here, maybe 8 with good behavior. When I get out, I'll be in my 40s, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn back even a fraction of the trust I destroyed. So I ask you, when desperation calls your name, when you're facing problems that seem impossible to solve, what will you choose? Will you choose the hard path of honesty and asking for help? Or will you choose the easy path that leads to destroying everything you claim to love? Looking back at the path of betrayal I walked, I finally see that desperation doesn't just consume the person who feels trapped, it spreads like fire, burning everyone they hold dear. This painful family story showed me that when we're drowning in our struggles, we can easily justify the unthinkable, convincing ourselves that hurting the ones who love us is somehow necessary. Don't follow the road I took. Don't let your pride silence you when you need help. Don't allow gambling addiction or any destructive habit to convince you there's no way out. And above all, never let money take priority over the people who care for you without conditions. To the parents listening, never assume your children will come to you whenever they're hurting. Sometimes shame cuts so deeply that they'd rather destroy themselves and you than admit the truth. Build spaces of trust where honesty is possible before desperation pushes them past the point of return. God tells us that love covers a multitude of sins, and my mother's forgiveness was living proof of that promise. Even when I sank to the lowest, ugliest version of myself, she somehow chose to love me through the darkness. That is grace undeserved, unconditional, life-changing, the same grace God offers to each of us. Stories like mine aren't meant as entertainment. They're warnings. Every tragedy in a family begins with small compromises of conscience. For me, it started with a harmless $20 bet and ended with a syringe designed to kill. Yet even here in prison, I've learned that God can bring meaning out of our worst failures. From my mother's ability to forgive, I learned about divine mercy. From her pain, I discovered the devastating cost of betrayal. And from her continuing love, I realized that redemption, though undeserved, is still possible. The real tragedy isn't the years I'll spend behind bars. It's the years I wasted when I could have been honestly loving my family instead of secretly destroying them. If my story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment with what you've learned, and subscribe for more stories that matter. Remember, the choices you make today will shape your family's tomorrow. Choose love. Choose truth. Choose better than I did.